Hey, folks. I just felt the need to do a breaking news live stream. I don't normally have live streams on Tuesday now, but Israel has restarted the genocide in a horrific way. Now, of course, it never really stopped. They were still trying to starve Gazans to death. There were still various sniper attacks on children. So it's not that there was a true 100% ceasefire, but the bombing that took place over nighttime, at least here on the East Coast, was horrific. Just hundreds and hundreds dead. This one day, if you were to take just the past 24 hours, and that would be all that happened, it would still be a genocide. It would still be indiscriminate bombing. It would still be the massacre of women and children and innocent men. And don't believe the garbage mainstream media that we have that says, oh, they needed to target Hamas, or they decided to begin retargeting Hamas, or whatever the bullshit is you're hearing. Here, I'm going to play a short clip from a doctor in Gaza. This is less than a minute long, but it clarifies what exactly they're seeing in Gaza right now.
What have you witnessed overnight?
So just utter carnage and destruction overnight. I was here in Gaza a year ago during the peak of the fighting in Khan Yunis, and the mass casualties back then looked exactly like the mass casualty that I saw today. Mostly children. The other half are mostly women, and occasionally there's a man, but I'm pretty sure the man has nothing to do with any of this that's going on. I did 6 operations overnight. Half of them were in small children, so probably 6 and below. I wasn't exactly sure their ages, but it's probably about 6 and below. Most of them are going to go on to die, unfortunately. I'm told, I don't know for sure, but I'm told that about 40 bodies were brought to the morgue directly. And, but yeah, it was just utter carnage, as usual. When you drop bombs on tents, that's what happens.
This is not a war, okay? Every time the media calls it the Israel-Hamas war, they're lying to you. This is a just straight up mass murder. It would be like calling a school shooting a war between the shooter and the children inside. This is not a war. You see on the screen, because this clip is from Sky News, even though luckily they had a Gaza doctor actually explain what's going on. But because it's Sky News, a Murdoch-owned property, generally one of the biggest propaganda outlets in the world, up in the corner it says Israel-Hamas war. This is not a war. It is just a straight up massacre. It is bombing of tents. It is bombing of children. Nearly 50% of everyone murdered in Gaza over the past year and a half have been children. And this completely outweighs the normal numbers of even modern warfare, which, yes, all warfare is horrific. All warfare, children are murdered. But the percentages are astronomically different in this, because this is the textbook definition of ethnic cleansing, of genocide. And I realize saying these words mean that this video will not get shown to 1/10 of the number of people. But you cannot relay these facts without saying the word genocide. In a moment, I'm going to bring to you at least a little piece of the story of an artist that my partner Eleanor Goldfield has been working with for Gaza art sales, basically selling prints of art by Gazans in order to get that money to Gaza. All 100% of the money goes to Gaza. Just a small little effort. And anyway, one of the artists that she works with was murdered last night in these bombings, and I'll bring you a little more of that in just a second. But I just wanted to bring you some more of the details. At least 404 is from Al Jazeera murdered last night. These numbers are almost always an undershoot of the accurate numbers, because they often can't find people under rubble, and people can be missing for days and weeks without anyone knowing to report them, because Gaza has been so destroyed and turned upside down that people have lost track with people all the time. And it doesn't mean they were necessarily murdered, but sometimes it does. Tuesday's attack took place across Gaza, including Khan Yunis and Rafah. So basically all over Gaza City in the north, central areas. Many of those killed in the attack were children. 404 killed, 562 injuries. It was a unilateral cancellation of the ceasefire. I and many others had been saying that Netanyahu he had no intention of ever getting to phase 2 of the ceasefire. When phase 2 ended, Israel immediately cut off all aid to Gaza, cut off all food. They were starving them to death, bombing people you are currently starving as they try and have a life inside tents. That's not a war. Quit calling it a fucking war. Okay. It's just, honestly, it's like saying Jeffrey Dahmer had a war on other people. It's just horrific. The propaganda you get from your mainstream media. And even when they're doing somewhat, like, even when CNN is reporting that a lot of children were murdered by Israel, occasionally they'll report something like that. They still have up on the screen the Gaza, the Israel Hamas war. It's not a war. Just that is propaganda. Let's see this from Dropsite News. Massacre at 2 a.m. Israel resumes indiscriminate attacks against Gaza, killing over 400 people. The U.S.-backed Israeli government, and thank you, Dropsite, for saying U.S.-backed. That's important, too. This is a U.S.-backed genocide. This is done with the full approval and consent of the United States. The U.S.-backed Israeli government resumed its intense genocidal attacks on Gaza early Tuesday morning, unleashing a massive wave of indiscriminate military strikes across the Strip and killing more than 400. They say 410 people. Like I said, these numbers will keep going up. The massacre resulted in one of the largest single-day death tolls of the past 17 months and also killed several members of Gaza's government and members of Hamas's political bureau. The Trump administration said it was briefed ahead of the strikes, which began at approximately 2 a.m. local time, and that the U.S. fully supports Israel's attacks. The U.S. would like you to know they fully support Israel's genocide. Thank you. Thank you, U.S., for making sure we know that. Hold on one second. But yeah, so that's from Dropsite News. Here's a quote from those in Gaza, from some reporters reporting in Gaza, a journalist. The sky was filled with drones, quadcopters, helicopters, F-16, F-35 planes. The F-35 planes were sent by the United States. The firing from the tank, as may probably many of the other stuff is listed as well, but the firing from the tanks and vehicles didn't stop. I didn't sleep last night. I had a pang in my heart that something awful would happen. Oh, you think? Israel's done nothing but awful things for a year and a half. At 2 a.m., I tried to close my eyes. Once it happened, 4 explosions shook my home. The sky turned red and became heavily shrouded with plumes of smoke. And again, I just keep reiterating that this is mostly children. This is the majority of the people they're murdering are children. It's just crazy. And let's see. Dan Cohen had some interesting insight. He said Trump pressured Netanyahu to agree to a ceasefire before he took office. And I covered that as well. And also how not that showed that Trump was some sort of good guy or cared about the Palestinian people. He just thought it would look good, like he gets stuff done that Biden can't get done. And so he basically forced Netanyahu to have a ceasefire that began when he got into office or just before. And Netanyahu ultimately agreed to it. Many in the Israeli parliament didn't even want to do that. These people are so disgusting and bloodthirsty, absolute psychopaths. Anyway, so Trump gets Netanyahu to agree to the ceasefire before he gets into office, but and then secretly opened negotiations with Hamas. I covered this the other day as well, that the U.S. was having negotiations with Hamas kind of outside of most knowledge of Israel. Israel was going to find out at some point. But anyway, the Israel government or its assets in the White House leaked the information to former Israeli intelligence officer Barak Ravid, who broke the story. This forced the Trump administration hostage envoy Adam Bowler to publicly defend the negotiations, which was the clip I played for you the other day, where he on CNN called called Hamas negotiators pretty nice guys. He said they don't have horns coming out of their heads. He also said the U.S. is not an agent of Israel. Now, saying those two things got him fired. You cannot say that the Hamas negotiators are pretty nice guys or that the U.S. is not an agent of Israel. Immediately after, Bowler denounced and demoted. Trump sent ICE goons to arrest Mahmoud Khalil. Israel cut off supplies to Gaza, resumed massacring the population in violation of the ceasefire, and Ansar Allah reimposed its naval blockade stemming from Yemen. The U.S. resumed bombing Yemen, which I covered yesterday, and tonight Israel fully discarded the ceasefire and resumed the genocide. What explains Trump's shift from self-proclaimed peacemaker in Gaza, even though he also publicly said he would finish the ethnic cleansing of Gaza when he had the White House address and announced that the U.S. was going to take over Gaza and clear out the Palestinians, which is, again, dictionary definition of ethnic cleansing. Why did Trump go from this so-called peacemaker to risking world war? It's impossible to say at this point, but as Netanyahu said in 2001, unaware he was being recorded, America is a thing you can move very easily. Also, of note is, and sometimes I feel like people overplay this aspect of it. I do feel like this aspect is important to know, but I think there's a lot more going on than this. But Netanyahu is being charged and prosecuted for and investigated for all kinds of corruption in Israel by the Israeli government. And he wants to stop those investigations. And the moment he's out of office, he probably would be arrested for that corruption. Now, this corruption has nothing to do with committing genocide. The Israeli government is all for genocide. That is their day-to-day, loving genocide. But Netanyahu has done everything he can to interrupt these corruption proceedings. And thank you for the super chat, Jay Blue. Really appreciate supporting the show. But and so he was expected to give yet another. He keeps having these, not meetings, but I don't even know what to call him. It's part of an investigation. They bring him into a room and question him. These questionings, these hearings over his corruption, and he was about to have another one, and he had to cancel it today because, what do you know? Massacring of women and children and innocent men has begun again. And I can't possibly go in and do my meeting where you ask me why I'm so corrupt. So that has been another aspect of this. Let's see. I want to now bring you, and I'll bring you some more quotes from UN officials as well. But someone that my partner Eleanor Goldfield has worked with in the Gaza art effort that she's been putting forward for a while now. It's basically selling prints of Gaza art that is made by Gazans, and all 100% of the money goes to Gazans. And she's had art showings of this art around Baltimore and Washington, D.C., other places that have been interested. Anyway, I'm going to play this video as I keep talking. One of the artists, Dorham, and I'm going to mispronounce his last name, but Kriki was murdered last night by Israel. And the art by these artists is really excellent and powerful. Here's a quote from Dorham: "But as it is to say, hope is not killed except by the death of the soul, and art is my soul that will not die," is what he said. And there he is. He was an excellent artist. And yeah, there's so this piece right there of the girl with the poppies at the Gaza wall is one of the most popular pieces when Eleanor does these events, and people purchase them, and all, again, like I said, all the money goes to back to Gazan artists. It goes to these people. It goes to Dorham. And it's not easy to make sure things like this are happening. That actually get some support to Gazans. It's a tiny little thing. This is no massive project, but it's kind of like you want to do something. And yeah, this piece was one of the most popular pieces, and it of the little girl with the flowers at the wall. And anyway, he was murdered last night. So, and one of the main artists she worked with, Khalil, was good friends with him as well. And yeah.
Of uplifting the children of Gaza day and night, offering moments of joy and laughter, and fostering a sense of community and hope amongst the children who have faced unimaginable hardships. He has taken it upon himself to organize cinema nights in refugee camps, providing children with much needed escape from the harsh realities of their lives, a space where they can momentarily forget the chaos surrounding them. Despite the odds, Durgham has found love. With his mother's blessings, he got married, and now they are working all together to restore what's left of his house. As they start the new family, new chapter, hopefully with a brighter future.
Yeah, so him, his wife, and his mother were all murdered last night in Israel, and it's tough to know whether they Israel definitely targets artists, they target journalists, they target even just small time media influencers who have a small following. So I think it's tough to know whether he was targeted for being an artist. It's quite possible, or it could have just been, as they say, collateral damage, which 99% of all the murders in Gaza are quote unquote collateral damage. But of course, that is a propaganda term that's meant to allow the murder of just untold numbers of innocent people. And it's a propaganda term used by the U.S. government, but it's propaganda term used by governments around the world, militaries around the world. Thank you, Seka, for supporting the show. But let me tell you how to support this this Gaza art effort. And these all the art prints that are sold are all the money goes to Gazans. But if you go to Radical Eleanor is the name on Instagram, and you can find the links. It's Gaza poster prints again, all of art that was created by Gazans. And she has the list here of each of the pieces of art and the artist that created them. And let's see. She says, message, this is Eleanor, the message her or comment as to which one you want, and she will get back to you. So you'll have to describe which one you want. This one of the angel boy was painted by Khalil, and in order to create the paint, he used some of the blood of a child that he's a doctor. So he was in the hospital with the child, and the child had died, and the child had no name, no identifying features whatsoever. So it was essentially like they would never find out who the child belonged to or anything. And he wanted him to be remembered. So he painted that. Here again is the girl with the poppies at the Gaza wall. That is made by Durgham. And someone's asking in the chat if there's a way to purchase these not on Instagram. And yeah, there's not like a website or anything, but if you were to contact Eleanor in any way, you could purchase these. You just let her know which one you want and how to contact you. Her website is artkillingapathy.com. I'll put that in the chat. And you can find her information there. She's also on Twitter at Radical Eleanor. If you can't find any way to contact Eleanor, you can always contact me, and I can forward that to her if you have any issues reaching her. And I'm reachable in plenty of ways, but leecampmail@gmail is my Gmail account. So all those are the ways to get these pieces of art. And I'm also going to, I know I said it's at the top. It's pinned, the posters are pinned at Eleanor's Instagram page, but I'm going to go ahead and put that link in the chat as well. Okay, I wanted to get to some more statements by, real quick, by some UN representatives. This was posted by Double Down News, but it shows an image of Francesca Albanese, who's been excellent on Gaza and the genocide. And yeah, someone in the chat mentioned that there's, I guess, some people out there who claim to be left wing and yet support every move by Donald Trump, including genocide. And I can't say anything except don't believe them. Like, that's not left wing. You can't be left wing, go, oh, genocide's awesome. There's nothing left wing about it. So, they can say they're pro-war lunatics, or they can say they're right wing, or whatever they want to call it, but there's nothing anti-war about it, I'll tell you that. Anyway, Double Down News says 4 months ago, ICC arrest warrants are issued for Netanyahu and Gallant for crimes against humanity and war crimes. 2 weeks ago, Israel stops all food and goods entering Gaza. Also, I'll add in here, in the past couple of weeks, UN report about the systematic use of sexual violence as a weapon of war by Israel. That's a UN report saying Israel is using sexual violence as a weapon against Palestinians. Also, I brought you the admissions by IDF soldiers of the systematic use of human shields, not a rogue, unit that strapped a Palestinian to their Jeep and drove somewhere. This is the systematic use of Palestinian slaves as human shields, sending them into homes to see if they get blown up because it's useful for the IDF. It's so systematic use of human shields by the IDF. To continue from the Double Down News post, today Israel breaks ceasefire, bombing Gaza, killing 350. It's actually over 410 people now. The most documented genocide in history continues. This is the first genocide to be live streamed, honestly, at least fully. I'm not saying there wasn't a lot coming out about the U.S. killing 1 million people in Iraq, but it was not live streamed like this. The Irish people seem to get it. Here's Ireland's been awesome, and here's from Northern Ireland. Technically still a part of the UK, but I know most of them don't like that. This is from Northern Ireland's First Minister, Michelle O'Neill, speaking at a protest.
I'm proud to be here in solidarity with the people of Palestine. It's great to see thousands of people again to be on the streets to call an end to the slaughter of the Palestinian people. We stand with you and we call out the international community and in terms of what their role is. So I'm here in solidarity with the Palestinian people. What we're all witnessing in horror is the devastation in Gaza, the devastation of the people of Gaza, and it's genocide and it needs to stop. And the international community need to make it stop. They must stop arming Israel and they must stop it now.
So yeah, that's from Northern Ireland minister, and she's absolutely right. The most covered genocide in history. Just remind you of a few other facts that I have covered recently, such as the fact that it's now undeniable. I mean, endless amounts of sourcing and resources showing that Israel killed hundreds upon hundreds of people on October 7th. Israel killed hundreds of Israelis on October 7th. So they run around saying 1,200 Israelis murdered by Hamas. No. We absolutely know it is far less than that. We absolutely know that the IDF killed hundreds and hundreds of Israelis on October 7th. Here's from a representative to the UN. Let's see. He's a representative UN. Yeah, UN Geneva office. He said there's no moral difference between putting people in gas chambers and burning people in safe zones inside tents. Every place in Gaza is under massive Israeli airstrikes, and the world is silent. I'd like to think the world is not silent, although many of the most powerful governments in the world are silent. But I think a lot of the world is not silent. And by the way, there are also, I don't have all the details on them, but there are plenty of protests popping up across the country. I know Jewish Voice for Peace is having a protest, or at least a solidarity march. It's not necessarily a protest, but today in Baltimore, I know there's things going on in DC. Here's one more post from Yanis Varoufakis. No, the ceasefire did not collapse. Israel collapsed it, as they always planned. After 2 weeks of no supplies to 2 million Palestinians in Gaza, once hunger had returned, Israel unleashed its bombs once again, and so the genocide continues. And yeah, that's a key point. I don't know if I've really reiterated it enough during this live stream that Israel never abided by most of the ceasefire rules. They released prisoners, which was part of the ceasefire deal. But another big part of the ceasefire deal was that Israel would allow in certain amounts of aid. But they did allow in some aid, but they didn't allow in nearly the amount that had been agreed upon. So Netanyahu was intentionally tanking the ceasefire deal because he wanted to get back to genocide. He wants to get back to ethnic cleansing. Also, it defends his position in office. But beyond that, as Trump has stated in his Oval Office speech, the end goal of this is full ethnic cleansing of Gaza. It's to take Gaza over and to rebuild it. And it's going to be beautiful. It's going to be so great. Just absolutely repulsive psychopaths, these people. And so Netanyahu was tanking this ceasefire intentionally. And yet you watch some of these reports and they'll just, like BBC will just, and Wall Street Journal and these garbage outlets will just repeat what Israel's telling you. They'll just repeat the Israeli propaganda. Oh, Hamas wouldn't abide by, they refused to release more prisoners. Yeah, they refused to release more prisoners after Israel cut off all aid, which was part of the ceasefire deal. You also have to look at the difference between the types of prisoners Israel is releasing and the types Hamas is releasing. Hamas is mainly releasing like IDF, like military. Not all of them are military, but many of them, or settlers, which is land theft. That's who Hamas has been releasing from Gaza. In exchange for, who has Israel been releasing? Women and children that they've had hostage for sometimes years upon years. They've had them held hostage. Like, why does, people who don't understand what's going on in Israel or Gaza should stop and ask themselves, why does Israel have hundreds of children to release? Like, where did they get these children to release? And many of these children were held before October 7th. So what was Israel doing holding hundreds of children, really thousands, before October 7th? Well, I don't understand. I thought this all started on October 7th. Why did Israel have thousands of women, children, and innocent men that they were just holding as hostages? Oh, you mean this was going on prior to October 7th, and this was not just all started on October 7th? Interesting that. Okay, well, it's easy to rant about this for hours, but Israel's just full back into it. And there's nothing redeemable about these actions, about genocide, about what Donald Trump and Joe Biden have done. And it shows how the U.S. bloodthirsty military machine is the same. It doesn't matter who's in that office. It hasn't changed significantly. Sure, and I gave him credit at the time. I said, look, I'll give him credit for the things he does that are not immediately just proven to be false or a show, that are positive. And having some sort of ceasefire for a period of time is a positive. But as Trump is proving now, he is more than willing to go back into genocide. Okay. I'm going to wrap it up there. As many of you know, I don't normally have live streams on Tuesday. I'm just doing this breaking news. Thank you. Thank you, Andrew. Really appreciate it. Appreciate the love and the solidarity, and let's just keep fighting for Palestine and keep fighting against these bloodthirsty lunatics. But yeah, I don't normally have a live stream today. I'll have another live stream tomorrow. Wednesdays is now 8 p.m. Eastern. That's the nighttime, crazy nighttime live stream. And then new Unredacted Tonight comes out Thursday. If you haven't seen the first 4 episodes, I hope you go check them out. And okay, keep fighting. Much love, solidarity.